Hey guys, what is up? This is Kit of Burn 1 with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, bringing you another deck profile, this time on my mid-range Swordcraft list that I recently fell in love with. I've been playing this list locally for a few days now, and I've played casual matches online and offline with this list, and I've been enjoying it a lot. I feel like it has very good matchups into generally everything, except probably Runecraft. Runecraft is the worst matchup you probably have with this list. But yeah, I can just jump right into it. But one thing to note here is that on our last deck profile video, we did have some people commenting they would prefer to see the physical cards. So this time around, I'm going to work with the physical cards. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys prefer having like this physical layout that I'm going to be having here, or if you prefer me to go back to like the digital look where I can pull up cards on screen and everything's very clear for you to see. Otherwise, we're just going to get right into this video. All right, so this is the current Swordcraft list I've been working with. I guess we'll start from the lowest cost and just move on from there, and we'll jump around as needed. So first things first, I think no surprise to no one is that we play 3 made leader in this list. So one thing that's really important about Sword, if you need to understand, is that all of Sword's Evo brings so much value to your deck and game plan that you want to search out key Evo pieces when you can, especially early on. So Made Leader is one of like the premium one drops, I would say, in the deck because it creates consistency for you. It's a very good turn 1 or turn 2 drop if you're going second even, because on turn 2 you can play this, spend a play point and an Evo point to Evo it immediately and get something out. A lot of times you do have to be careful though, because if you drop this on turn 1, your opponent can, angelic snipe it or something in response afterwards, and you lose value there. So you have to understand when it's safe to drop this. Sometimes you don't want to even play this until you can actually evo at the same turn, so you can get the value you need immediately. It does evolve into the 2/2, and we play that as a 2 of in the deck because honestly we're not looking to evolve more than 2 of these in a game. And if we ever draw all 3 of these in the game, it kind of feels bad. But next we play 3 of the Quick Blader. This is another premium 1-drop in the deck. It's a 1/1 with Storm for 1. I mean, what's there to complain about? It's just a good card in combination with Royal Banner. It becomes a 1-drop 2/2 with Storm. Kind of scary. Easy way to poke in and be aggressive early. Very good in the Rune matchup early on, because honestly, Rune is one of our worst matchups in general. Doesn't matter what version of the deck they're playing, but we want to be aggressive when we can, so still always a good 1-drop. If you notice too, we don't play any other 1-drop followers. We don't play the ninjas or anything like that. Since this list is pushing more for a mid to late game victory than like rushing our opponent down, we're kind of keeping the bottom end a little bit lighter than normal and only playing the really good premium 1-drops to lead into our good 2, 3, and 4 drops coming up. I played 2 of the Unbridled Fury. This is a card I feel got maybe overlooked by some players who just didn't understand the game early on. I know I fell into that trap because originally when I read this card, I thought of it more of like a response like in Magic, but I realized soon when playing Shadowverse is that your opponent gets to control when you get a respond, unlike like Magic, for example. So this card, it is a quick play spell. It deals X damage to a follower of your choice or enemy follower of your choice, where X is the number of followers on your side of the board. So this is a 1-drop that deals anywhere from 0 to 5 damage. So this is a super good 1-drop, honestly, because like you can trade 1 play point for something like if your opponent played the 5/5 Dragon Cavalier on their turn, you can pop it or whatever on your turn if need be for only 1 play point, which is a huge difference there, and it still lets you build up the board. Another thing that's really good about this is because it only costs 1, you want to play it usually proactively and not reactively, like I was kind of explaining earlier, which means is like you can build your board up with Floral Fencer and then use it to clear something. You never want to wait and to do it on your opponent's turn, because your opponent gets to tell you when you get to play this as a quick, which means they can clear your board with spells first to lower the number of followers you have, and then this becomes either useless or can't, stop a certain follower from attacking you due to like you're missing 1 extra follower, which means now this doesn't clear that follower. The 2-drops here, of course, we play a staple 3 of the Fevered Soldier. This is a 2-drop that's a 2/2 that whenever any other follower comes into play, this gains +1 power or +1 attack. We do play 1 of the Evo because sometimes your opponent doesn't respect this card, lets it stay there, evoing it to get 2 extra points and creating more health for it, bringing it up to a 2-drop 4/4 is huge, on top of following it up with like extra cheap followers or any other 2-drops, pumping this even more. If your opponent disrespects this card and lets it live for a turn, you can evo it in response and then like play a couple small 1-drops or something, or even tokens, and then this will gain so much power. A lot of times, if they don't respect this card, you start swinging in for anywhere from 6, 7, 8 damage sometimes, and then usually by then they try to respond to get rid of it, or they've been holding Angelic Snipe. If your opponent tries to respond with like Angelic Snipe, that's like a good play of like evoing this. Now that's out of Angelic Snipe range, and they have to use something else to get rid of it on their own turn if they were planning to respond to it attacking. Next, we just play the 3/3 for 2, Vanilla. It's just a good card overall. It has 3 health, which is really big, which means it doesn't get destroyed by Angelic Snipe, and usually requires your opponent to, clash into it or do something else, or use a spell that costs a little bit more to remove this. What's really good about this card too is that because of the stickiness of this card, it makes it very awkward for your opponent who kind of like Rune and stuff, who tech in a lot of Angelic Snipes. That card becomes more and more useless. You generally, our only real targets for Angelic Snipe are our favorite soldiers and like our 1-drops. Everything else generally doesn't really matter. I guess Gem Staff Knight or Commander is also one of them that's kind of annoyed by Angelic Snipe, but generally everything else in your list does not care about Angelic Snipe. If you don't like this card and you feel like people are being a little bit too aggressive in your meta, you could swap this out for, I forget the name of the card, but it's I think it's like Vanguard something, but it's like a 2-drop 2/3 with Ward. That card's pretty good too, or you can swap out any number of this, like maybe do a 2-in-1 split if you like. That's also a very solid card to pick. It just kind of depends on your meta. Right now I'm doing this so I can be a little bit more aggressive since it does have 3 attack power. Onto our not level 3s, our 3 costs here. So I'll just start here. Floral Fencer. It's the premium 3-drop of Swordcraft. It's probably with the card that like encompasses what Swordcraft game plan is. We're building all the tokens. We play 3 of the Evo here. Because as the game goes on, we're essentially just trying to build a board and then respond, build a board and then respond, right? So the fact that we get 3 chances to Evo our Floral Fencer when we have essentially 6 searches to find Floral Fencers or anything else we need is really big, which means we consistently get like 2 and 3 of Floral Fencers out in a game, especially when the game goes long, your opponent's wiping your board over and over again. Next, we play 3 of the Novice Trooper. It's a 3/3 for 3 that has Storm, 3 Storm damage out of hand, always big, along with Banner, pump it +1. It becomes a 4/4 with Storm. Very big, big chunks of damage going through. Anytime your opponent forgets to ward up or, anything like that, you can just sneak in with 3 damage and get the immediate value out of it. It's also very good as like a 3-drop removal for other things with like 3 base power, essentially. Or 3 health, that is. Finally, we play a 3 of Gem Staff Commander. Amazing card. It's awkward to play sometimes. Ideally, you want to play it on turn 3. Sometimes you have to play it on turn 4. But this card kind of lets us, grab our heavier tech pieces for later in the matchup. So you can make plays like on turn 3. If you're going first, you can play Gem Staff Commander to find your Floral Fencer on 4 to evo it like that. If you need wards or something like that, you can go ahead and get Otohime, or even later in the game, go for the Front Guard General, which is really big. You can kind of find anything you want in the list except obviously Lucifer, because it is not a Swordcraft follower. Next, here we have our 4-drops. Otohime we played as a 3 of. So the one thing about Sword is that we want to deal most of our damage through followers. Sometimes we want our followers to live and so forth. So Otohime is a good way to like protect and lock our board up by like summoning a bunch of 1/2 wards from Otohime's effect. We play 2 of the Evo because generally we're only going to Evo it twice a game usually. We build up the board. This is super good against like Dragon, things like that, where if they have to play a board clear or something to get rid of all of the wards that get in the way that are built off of the Otohime and the Evo of the version of it as well. Next, we play a 2 of Shadowed Assassin. This was a card I wasn't too sure about in the beginning. Again, this card is amazing. So when this comes into play, it is a 4/4 for 4. But when it enters the battlefield, you can go ahead and engage a follower on your opponent's board. And then the Evo form of it becomes a 5/5 here. We play it as a 1 of, and that effect is when it Evos, you can destroy a engaged follower on your opponent's side of the board. So this is really big. It's a very good turn 5 tempo play too if you're going second, because it costs 2 to Evo. It's a 4-drop. So on turn 5 you can play this and use a play point, and then use a Evo point to Evo it immediately to pop something. If you have Royal Banner out, this becomes after Evo a 6/6. It's a respectable amount of power that people have to deal with, and that also generally 2-for-1s, because you can come into play, engage something, Evo it, pop the thing you Evo, then run this into something else, which is still 5 to 6 power. It's just a respectable power range that also like generally lets you 2-for-1, and puts your opponent into an awkward board state essentially. We play 2 Royal Banners. If you watched the last deck profile, it's the same reasoning. I'm not a big fan of playing 3 Royal Banners. I do think this card's good. It's infinitely better, in my opinion, in the more mid-range list when you're going for a longer game, because you get more value turn after turn after turn. Whereas in the aggressive game plan, sometimes playing this on 4 or 5 just feels horrible, because you're not developing your board, you're not really doing anything, you're basically passing the turn. A lot of times too, your opponent will actively trade with your followers before 4 anyway. So this card never feels like it's good on 4 unless your opponent for some reason had no answer to like a few tokens on the board. Then this can feel pretty good. Once you drop it out, it makes things like Otohime more scary, especially when it evos, because you get a bunch of like 2/3s with ward on the board, which it's a little bit harder to clear, but generally most board wipes can take care of that anyway. But yeah, we only do 2 of, because we don't want to see more than 1 ever in our game. If you open 2 of these, you just literally want to off yourself right then. Next, we play 3 Irelia. This card is really, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just solid all around. So it is a 5-drop 4/6 with Rush, Accel, and Ward, but it has the fanfare effect that when it comes into play, you pick an enemy leader, and if that enemy leader has at least 3 cards on their board, so 3 or more cards on their board, this card gets +2/+2 and aura, making it a 6/8, which is spooky numbers. It also can't be targeted then, which is scary. It has Rush, Accel, and Ward, which is also scary. And then on top of that, if you have Royal Banner out, it just pumps it even more. This card, a lot of times, if your opponent doesn't play around it when you're getting to around the 5 range, especially if Royal Banner out, this card sometimes can just win you the game. Things like against Forest, the mirror match against Sword when they're going wide also. Even sometimes against Dragon lists that run Bellringer and start just slamming Bellringers out because they're drawing into them without really consciously thinking about your turn 5 play against Sword. I've had a few Dragon players run into this where it gets the buffs and aura, and it's very awkward for them to even handle, where they, instead of being able to like use a spell or something, they have to like trade in their shapeshifting mage, or trade in 2 things like a dragon plus something else to get rid of this card after you've already attacked and got rid of something else too. It's a very spooky card. You could technically cut this down to 2, but I like the 3 of package here, because like dropping 1 after another 1 sometimes is just game ending for some opponents. I play 1 of Sage Commander. This card is amazing when you have a board built. A lot of times, if you have a board built and you get to turn 5 and you drop Sage Commander, I feel like the game is kind of already locked in for you, because you're dropping a 5-drop 5/5 body, along with the fact that when it comes into play, it gives all your other followers +1/+1. So you're kind of bumping everyone's health and attack damage at the same time. It's very big. It's kind of like a Royal Banner, but on a body. I personally think this card is a little bit better than Royal Banner, but I also understand that Royal Banner is like a persistent effect. So long games, Royal Banner infinitely better. This is like a huge tempo swing if your opponent doesn't get rid of your board immediately, and dropping this also makes your board a little bit more stickier, because it does, pump them up. I've had a couple games where I had Royal Banner out, and around turn 5 or 6 or 7 like that, I'll drop Sage Commander, because they've left me like 2 or 3 things on the board with my Royal Banner, and then my wide board now becomes a tall board essentially because of the combination of these 2 cards. I could see this going up maybe 1 or 2. Going up to 2 maybe. I don't know just yet. This is kind of the list I've been working with, and I haven't figured out what exactly I want to change about it just yet. But right now it's filled strong as a one of, because you can also still on like turn 8 drop Gem Staff Commander into Sage Commander after you search it out, which is really big, especially if you don't have a Royal Banner out already, so your board doesn't get too clogged up. Next, we play 3 6-drop Tsubakis. This card is like, how do I explain this? It's just cards with dual effects that you get to choose what works best for your current scenario is, I feel, are always very powerful in like mid-range game plans, because when this comes into play, you can choose one of the effects, which is select an enemy follower on the field and destroy it, or give this follower Storm. So not only is this like a win condition, this is also like a control piece that they end up having to respect the following turn and have to get rid of it, because five attack power is still always going to be really, really big. 25% of your life is a lot of damage. On top of, like, if you have Royal Banner out, this becomes a 6/5, making it even more awkward to get rid of. And like, Royal Banner out means suddenly this is 6-drop 6 damage immediately to face if need be. A lot of times you will, in like certain matchups, for example, like against Dragon, more often than not, you'll probably end up using the effect to destroy a follower, because they all drop really big things that are ridiculous sometimes, and it's hard for you to deal with. So just having this out towards those big followers is always good. And then, like I said, Storm, 5 Storm damage out of hand, sometimes 6 is insane. In some cases, your opponent will... It's like you're playing Dragon in a sense, because you have a not a as good version of Forte, essentially. All right, our final followers here. We play a one of Lucifer. This card is very good. How do I explain? I guess very good utility in all directions for the deck. So the unevolved version is a 6/7 with ward, and at the end of your turn you get a heal 4. One of the biggest issues with Sword is that you don't really play any way to heal, and you do all your damage trading through followers and things like that. So this is your only real way to ever heal, essentially, especially if your opponent can deal damage to you without having to get through your wards. So this is one of the few ways to get out of like instant like Forte death range a lot of times. Secondly, we play a one of the Evo, because honestly, sometimes this is just 4 damage to face. You have this sit behind a bunch of wards from Otohime, and like you just sit there and go, next turn you're going to take 12 damage, because this is going to deal 8 face damage along with the 4 damage at end of turn that it deals to the enemy leader. Very good combination here. It's only a one of, because honestly we're not like looking all the time to heal. It's still a good card because it evos for free, so it does gain Bane also on the evo, so you can remove anything too big that you can't handle, essentially. And Mage Leader can search this out because it does have an evo. That's kind of like why we can get away with playing just one. Next, I play personally 2 Front Guard General. You can get away with playing 1 easily, but my meta right now is just full of so many Dragon players, and a lot of Dragon players will get hosed by this card. So it's a 7-drop 6/8 that when it has last word, so when it gets sent to the cemetery, it summons 2 2/2, what are they called? Let me see really quick. Steelclad Knights, and it gives them ward, and you can immediately engage those 2 tokens that it summons, meaning there's 3 wards your opponent now has to get through that they can't just, wipe the board and then all your rewards are gone. If they destroy this, then this summons the 2 tokens, you engage it. They have to either use a board wipe again to get the ward tokens, or they're just going to have to run in things. So this kind of protects you from dumb situations where your opponent just has you at like 11 or 10, and they're like, I have Genesis Dragon in hand, and next turn I'm going to be at 9 mana. So at least on your turn 7, you can drop this, engage this, and be relatively safe, because the most efficient way that a lot of players will get rid of this is using Erd. Erd is a very powerful tech card that's in neutral that can go into almost any deck, and Erd kind of does hose this card. That's kind of part of the reason too why I run this as a 2 of instead of just a 1 of, because I do experience a lot of dragons, and some dragon players here end up playing Erd as one of their tech choices. But if your opponent doesn't have Erd or a good out for this card, they're just going to have to spend a lot of time just either using extra card, extra resources, extra followers to crash into this, break it, and then get rid of your 2/2s. And also you got to consider that if you have Royal Banner out, the wards become 3/3s, and this becomes a 7/9. all respectable power, very hard for your opponent to get through, especially against dragon when they're only playing like one big creature a turn essentially, and they're not going too wide. And at any point, if dragon does go too wide, we still have Aurelia here to, you know, pick up the slack essentially. But yeah, I think that is it. I went over everything here. So yeah, this is my current mid-range sword list. That's what I'm kind of calling it right now because I feel like it's more mid-rangey. It has a very good time into, I think every matchup I feel is like pretty solid overall. I think the worst matchup you can ever go into is against any rune decks. Rune decks, you gotta kind of be more aggressive and understand their game plan as well. Aurelia sometimes becomes useless in the sword match, or no, sorry, the rune matchup. It just depends on how greedy they are with playing things onto their board. But if you can get this out with the added bonus of the aura and +2/+2, this can be very devastating for Rune. But I found a lot of times, especially against D-Shift, they're not filling up their board too often. I think every other matchup you have a fairly good shot of winning. Maybe Haven could be a little bit trouble just because things like Jeanne d'Arc can like board wipe on turn 4. It's kind of annoying, but like I said, we don't play any of the like ninja followers or like anything like that. Most things on here have 3 or more power, and then once Royal Banner comes out, like a lot of these cards that only have like 2 power, like Gemstaff Commander, get out of range of just like immediately getting destroyed by Jeanne d'Arc. Besides that, though, I think that is it. If you have any questions on this deck list, go ahead, ask them below. Anything you want to talk about this list, I'll try to answer any questions I can in the comment section below. But hopefully you guys like this deck profile. And if you prefer having the cards on screen instead of the physical cards laid out like this, please let me know. I'm trying to figure out which one you guys like the most, and it's really important that we get feedback so we can make the every video more suited for more people in the audience and everything like that. One thing to note too, you gotta, if you're gonna play this list, you gotta play the Aurelia leader, because obviously you get the bonus of flexing on your opponent, but it also is the best sword leader right now. But besides that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, leave us some information below if you liked it or not, and we hope to see you in the next video. Later, everyone.